Her objective is to learn the elements of a good story and to create an original story based on her personal experience. Her speech is 5 to 7 minutes. Please help me welcome Rose
Swearing Gin.
Swearing Gin. I don't want to butcher it. Presenting actions and words. Actions and words.
If I died tomorrow, would you be able to live the rest of your life knowing we were not okay? Because I can't die being this mad at you. Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and our most welcome guests, I said these words to my father just moments after telling him I had stage 3 lymphatic cancer. So my question and the news was a bit of a shock to both of us. My father and I had not had a meaningful conversation in the 10 years since my parents' divorce. We lived 2,000 miles apart physically, but the emotional distance between us was even further. I had pretty much given up believing that he loved me. After a long pause, he said to me, "What do you need me to do?" Being an angry 21-year-old, I wanted to test him. I wanted to know exactly how far this man would go to repair the damage in our relationship. "Dad, I need you to be on a plane tomorrow." And then he shocked me because he was on that plane the next day and with me by dinner that night. The old cliche of actions speak louder than words is not always true. Both are equally as important in those moments in our life when we are tested. My father, getting on that plane and flying from Texas to San Diego, changed the course of our relationship. In fact, he created a relationship where they had been none at all. We are very close now, and we have the most beautiful father-daughter relationship. In fact, he walked me down the aisle at my wedding in June. But I began to think about, had he done and said things that counted before that time? When I was 7, my parents decided to take our family on a trip to the desert Southwest. My mother told me I could take one stuffed animal. So I chose my gorilla. And his name was Magilla. Like most normal families, we stopped one day in our trip at a burger joint in a small town. We had our lunch and proceeded on in our adventure. An hour later into that drive, I realized I had abandoned Magilla at the burger joint. Crying ensued, wailing happened, and my father pulled the car over. He turned around and he looked at me and he said, "What do you need me to do?" "I need my Magilla. Please get my Magilla." He turned the car around and drove an hour back to that burger joint to spare his daughter even further tears. He changed the life of a 7-year-old, and I was reunited with Magilla. 10 years after my cancer was cured, I found myself back in a hospital. Only this time it was to help my mother as she slipped away from this life and from me. Throughout the entire illness, I called my dad. I talked to him. He helped me through the process of watching my mother pass away. You see, my dad had always been the bigger person through my parents' nasty divorce. He never said a bad word about my mother. even while she badmouthed him to me any chance she got. And he always took the blame. Never once did he say, it was your mother's fault. He always said, it was my fault. So he was there for me without reservation. When my mother finally left, I made 2 phone calls. The first was to my brother, who could not be with us. I let him cry. I stayed strong because he needed me to. And then I called my dad. And as I backed against the wall and slid down and sat on the floor of a hospital waiting room, all I could get out was, Dad, Mom died. I began to sob uncontrollably, heaving and gasping. And when there was a moment of silence from me, he said, what do you need me to do? And all I could say was, nothing, Dad, I just need to cry. And he let me do it, because he was crying too. You see, he was mourning my loss of my mother. But I realized he was also mourning the loss of a woman he once loved. And he was mourning the loss of the woman who gave him his 2 children. Actions and words are equally powerful. So if you are choosing between actions or words to fix a relationship in your life, or to change the course of a relationship, don't. Because sometimes you need to get on a plane and go sit with someone for chemo. Sometimes you just need to turn the car around and go back for the gorilla. And sometimes you just need to let someone cry. So say the words, do the actions, and open your heart. Mr. Toastmaster.